Hi everyone. Two of the most expressive techniques in the guitarist's bag are vibrato and string bending. So developing these two techniques will help to develop your own unique sound. One thing I've also learned over the years, especially when playing in a club with dodgy acoustics, playing fast picking just seems to turn into so much mush, whereas a well played high sustained note with vibrato really cuts through. So this week I just wanted to focus on the very basic left hand techniques. I'll leave the whammy bar out of it this week, we'll do that another day. So let's start with string bending. So you can bend between any two notes of a scale as long as you've got the strength, and obviously as long as you don't snap the strings. But I'm going to stick with the basics this week and just focus on 4 of the more common bends used around the pentatonic scale. So I'm going to play up on the 12th fret, the E minor or E blues pentatonic. So the very first bend you'll hear a lot is this one. It starts on the 3rd string. You're bending from the A to the B. So what you can see straight away is I'm actually using all 3 fingers of my left hand to make this bend. And what you need to try and do is pitch that bent note so it matches the B note. The other thing to be aware of is what's going on with the D and the A strings as well. So when I'm bending, I'm actually pushing them to the side. So they're not being fretted, but they are being pushed to the side with the 3rd finger. So they are being muffled by that finger. But I'm also using my right hand to deaden those notes as well. So I only hear the bent note. Often when you do this bend, you'll resolve either to the B note, or you'll resolve to the D, or resolve to the E. So the next note is similar place, it's on the B string this time, and you're going from the D to the E. So it's another tone bend. Very similar to the last, I'm using all 3 fingers behind the note. And again, you want to try and pitch the note so it matches that E string note. And similarly with this, you'll often bend and then play the E note. Or play the G. Third bend on the 1st string, you bend from that G up to the A. And often you'll bend up and just relax down again. So all 3 of these bends are up on this side of the pentatonic, and I can get all 3 fingers behind them. The 4th bend I thought I'd mention is using your 1st finger on the G note here. It's very much a blues sound, and what you're trying to do is to make this G ambiguous, so it's neither a G or a G sharp. You're just sort of giving it a micro bend between G and G sharp, so it sounds like this. And that often resolves then to the E. And I guess a final technique to be aware of is involves pre-bending. So what you try and do is you pre-bend to the note. So if I'm just here, for example, I'll bend from the A to the B, but I won't play it. I'll then play the note when it's a B and relax down to the A. So a little riff there using the G to G sharp. A really good example of these sort of basic blues bends is you'll find in the solo to Jimi Hendrix's Highway Child. where he uses 2 or 3 of these bends, and he uses pre-bends as well in the sort of the basic riff that he builds a whole solo from. And that basic riff is pretty much this. You're bending from the A to the B, you're playing the B, play the E, then you bend up to the E, then you play the E, pre-bend from the E and relax down to the D, then play the B, then bend up to the B twice. So have a play with that, and he's basically using variations of that all the way through that solo. As I said, experiment with the solo from Highway Child by Jimi Hendrix. My own personal preference is to not learn it note for note, but just to use the bends that we've been talking about and approximate it. See if you can come up with your very own version. So let's move on to vibrato. So the next thing I wanted to talk about briefly was vibrato. Vibrato is one of those techniques that you kind of have to experiment with to find your own voice, to find what works for you. As you develop your own style though, it can turn into a sound that's unique to you, just like it does for some singers as well. My own vibrato comes from a sort of a rotating movement from the wrist. And I do remember years ago watching videos of B.B. King and trying to copy that when I first started. And I've had basically 2 approaches, which involve firstly pulling downwards in a smooth manner, where I'll fret the note. So I'm pulling the string down towards my hand and then relaxing it back to its original position. And the other approach I'll use is to push the string away, so I'm pushing the string in that direction. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm using the knuckle of my index finger as a pivot point, so that's against the neck of the guitar, and that acts as a pivot point to apply the vibrato. The thing here is to work on the intonation, so you are relaxing back into that original position. So the string is not always sharp, otherwise it'll start to sound out of tune. And really you need to play around with this and find your own rate of vibrato. Do you like to play quite quickly, or do you like to slow it down? Do you like really broad sort of wild bends, or do you like much more subtle ones? You know, find your own voice. The other thing I'd suggest you do is to listen to great vocalists as well. Hear how they apply vibrato. You know, for example, one trick I've stolen from them is when I'm playing a sustained note is to wait and then apply the vibrato. So I'll play the note, let me think, and then I'll introduce the vibrato afterwards. And of course you can combine all of these. You can combine the string bending, the vibrato, this sort of delayed introduction of the vibrato, and then relaxing the bend. So for example, if I go between D and E, I could sort of bend the note. And that's a great way of sort of, you know, adding some lyricism, adding some sort of a human touch to the note that you're playing. Have a play with it, see how you get on. As you can see, there's a lot to experiment with here. There are some essential elements of lead guitar technique. So it's well worth spending the time and effort to develop these, and they're going to put far more emotion in your playing than playing a gazillion notes a second ever will. So give them the attention they deserve. So that's it. Have fun with it, see how you get on, and I'll speak to you next time.